Good day, morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time you're listening to this. Welcome to Raw Chatter, unfiltered stories of addiction, recovery, and reinvention. And actually, what I'm talking about today is one of those hidden addictions that you may not even think is an addiction. For those of you who don't know me, welcome. I'm Vicky Midwood. I am an integrative health coach, nutrition and lifestyle coach. I'm also known as the addiction eliminator. Why? Because I help you to eliminate the stuff that is stopping you from having the energy, the focus, the joy, the life that you would like to have. And I help you to do that in ways that are practical, because I'm all for the how. I am not somebody who is going to be giving you a lot of waffle and spiel without following it up or backing it up, if you like, with some practical steps that you can take. Now, having said that, I know not every practical solution is going to work for every person because we're all different. But a lot of the stuff that I share will work for the majority. And so my invitation is always to take from this what you will, and to give it a go if you feel you want to. And it's as simple as that. What I will say with any of the stuff that I share on a practical level, and I was just having a really good conversation just before I decided to record this episode with somebody from networking about what we actually do in terms of practical steps and recognizing that we all have our own journey. And often when we try things, we don't allow long enough to be really sure whether it is actually helping us or not. You're not going to know doing any of the techniques that I share on any of the topics that I've shared just by doing something for a week or even a couple of weeks. Ideally, you want to give yourself a month to get a real idea, especially if it's a daily thing, of whether it's working for you. If it's something that you're doing weekly, I would say give it longer than that. I would say give yourself 3 months to know for sure whether it is actually making a difference for you, because we are excellent at adapting. Our body and our brain are brilliant at adapting, but we're also excellent at predicting. And that is what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about anxiety and worry, where we basically spend hours, and if you tot it up over your lifetime, probably days or even months, sometimes years for some people, predicting negative things, predicting catastrophe. And we do that because we're human. This is part of how we are still alive. If we didn't look for things that could go wrong and prepare ourselves for them, then we wouldn't still be here as a species. So it's what we do, and we're excellent at it because we're well practiced as human beings. But it doesn't serve us in today's world very well at all, because when we spend so much of our day, week, lifetime in worry, we absolutely know there is massive correlation to worry, anxiety, and cellular inflammation. And pretty much every health issue, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, starts with some kind of inflammation. And we don't really think, unless you've listened to a lot of what I've been sharing over the years, that our thoughts are a big contributory factor to inflammation. But oh my goodness me, they are huge. And so what I want to share with you today is, because it keeps coming up, and if you are new, you won't know, but often I share on my podcast some of the stuff that keeps cropping up with my private one-to-one clients. And I work with them in a hybrid fashion. Sometimes I see them in person, sometimes it's via Zoom, like on a screen like this, and sometimes we coach and consult via WhatsApp. But themes tend to come up, and this last week or so very much it's been anxiety and worry. Worry about the future, worry about what is going to happen to this country, to the economy, to what is going on globally. Are we heading for World War III, is something that was up for discussion the other day? Is AI going to mean that so many people lose their jobs? And the answer is, We can make educated predictions because that is what we do based upon stats in the past, but nobody knows for sure and nobody knows for certain. And here is the big issue. We humans want, above anything else, certainty. We want to know what's going to happen. And yet, it is the one thing that we cannot guarantee, because we can never be 100% certain about what is going to happen for us in the future. Even though every part of your brain tries to predict, it's never going to be 100% certain. Now, there are certain things, obviously, that you kind of expect to happen. You expect that you're going to go to work or to school or to uni most days, right? You expect that at some point you will be eating. You expect that at some point you will be sleeping. You will put clothes on, because, especially in the UK, I've got my woolly jumper on because it is flipping freezing today. So there are certain things that we pretty much know we're going to do day in, day out. But when it comes to the stories that go on in our brain, when it comes to what happens in terms of the stuff that we worry about, that we get anxious about, usually it's because we're looking for certainty. We want solutions and we want answers to something that hasn't actually happened yet. And what I want to just go through is a way that you can help yourself to not feel quite so ruled by worry and anxiety, because it is addictive. And I know, as I said at the start, it probably sounds like something that it's just what I do. It's who I am. Often people create an identity around, I'm the anxious one in the family, or I am an anxious person, or I've got an anxious personality, or, talk about people who go, oh, well, even if there isn't anything to worry about, Auntie Mabel will find something to worry about because that's just what she does. Well, it's learned for sure. So family members will pick it up from other family members. If you notice that, a daughter is repeating the same kind of language and thought processes and coming out with the same kind of worries and concerns as their mom or their grandma, you kind of know that this stuff gets picked up. But also it gets planted, doesn't it? It gets planted by what we see on social media, and especially what we see on the news, which is one of the reasons why I haven't watched the news for years and years and years. I think I watched a little bit of the whole malarkey with COVID and just thought, now I reminded myself why I don't watch the news. So I always recommend to my clients that they don't watch the news. And the first thing that I get, oh my God, I can't not watch the news. I won't know what's going on. Well, actually, you will, and you do, because I do. I'm not oblivious to what is happening. People talk about it. We will find out this stuff by different means other than watching the news. And we know that the news is biased. What is fed to you is what the powers that be that rule the news want to feed to you. And it's designed to scare you. And it is designed to some degree to control you, because they have an agenda that you're not aware of. And I'm going off on a tangent now, but this stuff causes worry, right? And it absolutely does. Now, what I want to touch on is, what can you do if you know that you are somebody who worries all of the time? And it absolutely causes you health issues. It is exhausting, number one. It can affect your sleep massively. And if your sleep is being disrupted night after night because you cannot switch your brain off, because as soon as you put your head on the pillow, all of these thoughts and worries come into play, then you are going to, by default, affect how your gut is functioning, how your digestive system is functioning, how your hormones are working, and all of your neurotransmitters. In other words, every single cell in your body is going to be affected by you not sleeping well consistently. So getting a handle on your worry is a really important thing to do. Now, what actually is a worry? Well, it starts with a thought, doesn't it? A thought pops in. Right? And then we have got a choice as to what we can do with the thought. And this is really important. We can't choose the thoughts that pop into our head, but we can then, once they have popped in, decide what we're going to do. Now, you can go straight into thinking about that thought and creating stories and asking yourself questions. And that is where we have got an opportunity to not do that. We can notice the thought, we can be interested by it, and we can choose to shelve it and come back to it later. Now, is it easy to do that if you haven't done it? No, you've got to practice it. You've got to consciously decide that you're not going to follow through with that thought process. And there's an art to it, and you definitely need to practice it, but it can be done. And people who are successful in quieting down their mind chatter, or some people refer to it as their monkey mind, but this consistent chatter voice, they do it by getting conscious. So that the thought comes in, they notice it, they observe it, they don't dismiss it, but what they do decide is that they're not going to engage with it there and then. Because here's the thing, when you are inside the worry, neurologically, you cannot find a solution. And what we tend to do is if we have that thought and then we start thinking about that thought, we're generally looking for some kind of a solution. But what often happens is that we just end up creating more problems, issues, more worrying thoughts along the same lines as the first one. In other words, the more we think about it, the bigger the situation is, the bigger the problem seems to be, the more you find to worry about. And because when you're in the worry, you are neurologically not in a state to be able to find a solution, you just end up going around and around in circles. And this is where people can get so lost in worry that they genuinely lose time, because they're not finding a solution, they're not making a decision, they're just getting more and more thoughts and feeling more and more overwhelmed. And this is often what leads to paralysis. Right? And you've heard of analysis paralysis. Take it one stage further. We just literally can't do anything. Now, I work with people with ADHD and with autism, usually people who have late diagnosis. So they didn't even know that their brain was working differently. But they describe this stuff that sometimes they will just find themselves like just completely rooted to the spot because they can't move, because they just don't know what to do, because of all these worry thoughts and this mind chatter that's going on just creates this massive sense of anxiety, so much so that your nervous system gets totally overwhelmed and it just goes, I'm going to shut you down. Right? Just stop. You need to recalibrate. You need to just pause. You need to reset. Now, is there a way around it? Yes. Hooray. Absolutely, there is. So this is based upon research that has been done, and I don't have the links to the papers to share with you. But if you want to go onto AI or Google and just put research for worry time, then do so, because you'll be amazed at what comes up, because it actually does work. So this is practically for those of you who recognize that your thoughts create anxiety, which then creates more worry. And often it can be so bad that it actually creates an anxiety attack, where for some people it feels like they're having a heart attack, right? And this is how powerful your brain is and your mind is, right? It's so powerful that it can actually get your body to physically respond like you are having a heart attack. Your heart is racing, you feel flushed, you can't breathe properly, right? It's horrific. If anybody has had a panic attack, you know what I mean. And if you've watched anybody have a panic attack, it's like, oh my God, it's really disconcerting and uncomfortable to see somebody in that amount of distress that has actually been created just by what's going on in their own head. Now, what I'm inviting you to do is recognize is if this is you, you can start to feel more in control by doing something that we call worry time. So what that means is, as you go about your day and you're kind of like maybe in the car and you're at red traffic lights and you're not particularly noticing because you're thinking about where you're going and who you may be meeting and what might they say, or did you mention this last time you saw them? And we start going into questioning and self-critical mode, and all of these worries and thoughts come on up. So what we can start to do is recognize that as we're going through our day, if something randomly pops into our head, then we catch it. Now, I've shared this before, it's catching these thoughts. And it is something that is so important that we start to learn to practice to do. And we just look at it as an observer and from a place of curiosity. Oh, Vicky's thinking. So referring to myself in the third person is really, really helpful because it creates a little bit of distance between me and that single thought. Now, Vicky's thinking whatever the thought is. This person's going to think I'm looking old because they haven't seen me for 20 years. Right? Now, I could do one of two things. I can shelve that and it become a worry, and I'm going to be so concerned about what else they're going to be judging. Is it going to be my hair? Is it going to be my body size? Is it going to be the clothes that I'm wearing? And I'm going to get myself into a right state. Or I can observe that thought has popped in, and I can decide to just be simply curious. Well, that's interesting that I should think that. Didn't think that I was still that bothered about what other people think of my appearance, but obviously part of my brain still is. That's interesting. Or I can decide I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write it down in my notes and come back to it in worry time. Now, as I go through the day, there's going to be all kinds of random thoughts that crop up, but there will always be, right? We are not in the day, as we're going about our daily life, in the right state neurologically to find solutions in and of the moment, because we're on our way somewhere, we're doing something. They usually pop in at like random times. And so if you can write those thoughts down, catch them, write them down, and just go, I'm not dealing with this right now, but I'm going to come back to it. Okay, I'm not dismissing it, but I'm not dealing with it right now. That's interesting. Let me just shelve it. And you write it down, whether it's in a notebook, whether it's on your phone, whether it's wherever it happens to be, wherever your best place for keeping little notes for yourself is. And then what you do is each day you set yourself a specific time that is worry time. Now, I'm going to suggest that you start with just 10 minutes. Because what we don't want to do is get ourselves bogged down and ruin the rest of our evening. Now, for some people, they suggest you do 20 minutes. Other people say 30 minutes. Here's the thing. Be sensible. Look at your list. How many thoughts have you captured and shelved for worry time? If you've only got a handful, then 10 minutes is going to be plenty. If you've got more than that, then potentially 20 or 30 minutes is what is required. And you give yourself permission to worry about these things. Now, when you're actively sitting down, and this is the only thing that you are doing, you can look at these thoughts from a very different neurological perspective, more likely a solution-focused perspective. And that means then that this worry time is actually beneficial, because you will be able to, first of all, look at the thought with a different set of eyes, because you're in a different neurological state and a different energetic state than when you first made a note of it. But also, you are now deciding consciously where to go with your thinking around that thought. And you can choose to go down the path of what-ifing and yes-butting and all that kind of stuff if you want to. But you can make some notes while you're doing it, because you've set yourself the time aside. When you're trying to sort out these things during the day and all these thoughts are going around your head, it's like a washing machine on a spin cycle. You're just collecting more and more lint and dust and crap that's coming out, right? And it's just getting worse and worse and worse because you're not doing anything with it. But when you set out that worry time with pen and with paper, and you're looking at these things, now your brain is in a much better state to come up with a solution, or to decide that actually, do you know what? Now you've looked at it, it's no longer a thing. You're not even worried about it now, because it's just not worth worrying about. Or you've already dealt with it, or it's not even in my control. And these are the things you need to look at. Can I find a solution? If so, what is it? And can I take action on it ASAP, like immediately, if possible, to help my brain to feel calmer, more in control and relaxed about it? Is it something that actually, now I've revisited it, not in the heat of the moment, is not even a thing anymore, and you can just let it go, dismiss it, put a line through it, whatever you want to do? Or is it something that is not actually in my control? And I can worry for 10 minutes or 10 days and I still won't be able to do anything about it, in which case I have a choice. Am I going to allow it to take up space in my brain and in my life? Or am I going to choose to just let it go until and unless it comes up again later, and maybe then there is a solution? So this is something that I highly recommend you try, because you can hear me describe it and talk about it, and in your head, thought, you can be saying, well, they're rubbish. That's not going to work. I'll end up just thinking more and more and more. Or you can go, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to give that a go tomorrow. I'm going to make a note of all of the thoughts that come in, and I'm going to actively, consciously choose not to get caught up in thinking about the thoughts. I'm just going to catch the thought itself, that one sentence, and write it down, observe it, note it. I'm going to come back to it later. And I'm going to set a set time, not too late in the evening. It doesn't want to be close to bedtime, because chances are that if you haven't gone through the process properly, you'll carry on thinking about this stuff when you go to bed. So please don't make it just before you go to bed. But say something like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening. Make it early enough in the evening that you're in a state of calm, work is done, and you can just fully focus for whatever time frame you have decided. Honestly, 30 minutes is your max, right? Please do not let yourself go any longer than that. Set a timer, whether it's a proper good old-fashioned alarm clock, or use your phone, or your stopwatch or whatever, but please no longer than 30 minutes. And then let me know, right? Because I'm curious to see how it works for you, right? This is a process that works for so many people in such a profound way that they wonder, why on earth didn't I start doing this earlier? But they definitely don't stop it. It becomes a part of what they do every single day. And guess what happens? The thoughts that crop up that they used to worry about so much rarely crop up at all, because they've dealt with them. When we don't deal with them, we don't do this kind of process, they'll keep on coming up over and over again. And this is where the saying comes from, what you resist persists. If you don't turn into this stuff, if you don't look at it and notice it, if you try and just push it away, it's going to keep on coming back. But by doing this process, you stop, you give yourself the opportunity to worry as much as you want about that thing. But then when the time is up, and you move on. So let me know how you get on, and give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a subscribe, folks, if you haven't yet already, because I really do want this podcast to get out to as many people as possible that can help. And if you do know somebody who you think actually needs to hear this, because you think that doing this process for them would be super helpful, please pass it on. And as always, I'm going to leave you with this. We only have one life, as far as we know, and one body. So please look after it, because it is looking after you. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.